Ready to do some more real estate exam questions? Well, get set. We're going to do national real estate questions that apply to all 50 states, even if you have one exam versus two that other states like Texas have. So we're going to do national questions at the first part of this webinar or session. It's a live session for you to participate. And then we will do some Texas real estate questions towards the end, about 5 of them or so. So this session is designed for you to participate, answer the questions, and with the question number and the letter answer, and ask any questions you might have, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. If not, we'll Google them together. So welcome back to YouTube Agent Prep with Wow Lillie Handy, coming to you from San Antonio, Texas. And I am actually an active realtor with eXp Realty, and I'm prospecting every day, which is cold calling, something I didn't really like, but I'm getting to like it. All right, so I'm going to show you the book that I'm using, that I have permission to use. This is the Texas Real Estate License Exam Prep. And don't get concerned if you're from another state other than Texas. It has lots of national questions. It has several exams that apply to the national portion of the exam. As you can see here, National Law Review, okay, applies to all states. And then it has National Practice Test and then Texas Test. So there are, let's see, 10 national exams here or tests. And then Texas, for those of you that are in Texas, it has tests 6 different exams. So we're starting out with national today. And again, this book, it is excellent. Okay. And I don't say that about all books. This one I love because it has national and questions, and it then explains the answers. And that's what you want to look for. Prep books. This is the prep book. Okay. A prep book that reviews all the courses that you took. If you're in a different state, this author, Metling, Kuzik, and Hamilton, does have, I think, about 26 different states. There's a link on my description for Amazon that you can use to purchase the book for your particular state. If there isn't your particular state, there are other resources. I have other links in there that you can purchase prep book. That is the excellent material for you to prepare. It usually gives you a review of what all your topics are that you studied, all the courses that you studied, reviews them, summarizes them, then provides you with questions. Look for a book that has answers for the questions, not just the letter answer, unless you want to go and research what the answer is. Some of them do have vocabulary. In my Facebook Agent Prep private group, there is a book called the Texas Real Estate Sales Exam Guide that has vocabulary and a lot of more questions. It's outdated for Texas. However, it's only about a handful of questions that are outdated. But I tell you, many of my students have recommended it, have used it, and it's helped them pass. Another resource on my Agent Prep private Facebook group. If you're not a member, request, make sure you answer the questions so that I can accept you, is the night before the exam. What is it called? Cheat sheet. So there's a tab called guides. Under the guides, there are 14 guides that I have in there. Review those. And I think the 2 most useful ones that I find are the Texas Real Estate Sales Exam 4th edition, which has excellent national questions. And for those of you in Texas, excellent Texas questions. Just keep in mind about a handful are outdated. And then it has the vocabulary. So everything in one book. If you don't have vocabulary, hey, Google it online. There are lots of free websites that have vocabulary. And others will just provide it to you for free. Download them and make sure you practice that vocabulary, because you're learning a new language, and that's the language of real estate. And it's a must. That is a must, M-U-S-T, for you to prepare for your exam. Okay, so now let's go to what we're supposed to start out with, which is a national practice test. And we are on test, let me see here. Test number 7, okay? Test number 7 has to do with finance. So keep finance in mind, okay? And I do these questions consecutive following the book. So I posted on the video description the prior session that we did on national questions and Texas questions. So you can go to that to see the prior exam prep. Okay, so we're going to do, and while you're participating, make sure you put the question number and the letter answer so that we're all on the same page. So we're starting out with 734. And remember, this has to do with some finance. All right. The 3 overriding considerations of a lender's mortgage loan decisions are A, points, interest rates, loan terms. These are all vocabulary. B, the location of the mortgage property, the oh my gosh, all this time I was muted. Bummer. Okay, for those of you watching the replay, we are doing national questions and then Texas state questions at the end of the class. And we're dealing with section 7 or test number 7 that has to do with finance. And I had mentioned while I was muted that the book that we are using is this, Texas Real Estate License Exam Prep, which includes national questions that apply to all states. And today we are doing test number 7, which has to do with finance. So excuse me for that. That's a bummer. Oh boy. All right, so the question was the 3 overriding considerations the lender's mortgage loan decisions are made on. A, points, interest rate, and loan terms. Those are all vocabulary. The location of the mortgage property, where is the property that's going to be financed located? The borrower's cash, that's the mortgage or, right? And the amount of the borrower's equity. You know, how much equity does that borrower have on the current property or other property, the ability to repay, the value of the collateral, and the profitability of the loan, or is it the amount of the loan, the borrower's income, and the down payment? So hopefully you can hear me now. The answer is actually C. The lender is concerned with the ability of the borrower to repay, the value of the collateral, which is the home that is being financed or the property that being financed, and the profitability of the loan. So does the loan have a good interest rate that they're going to make money on while it is financed? Those are three overriding considerations, three key factors that a lender is going to look at in order to approve a buyer's loan for a particular property. And thank you for your patience, Blanca. Thank you for letting me know that you couldn't hear me. I greatly appreciate that. Because you know what? It, it helps all of us, right? And it would be a bummer if this video was all silent. Okay, so the first answer was C. 3 overriding considerations of a lender's mortgage loan decision. It can be a bank, it can be a mortgage company. A mortgage company is like a mortgage broker. They represent or they get monies loaned from different lenders. Okay. Going through a bank can take a little bit longer than going through a mortgage broker. Why? Mortgage brokers are paid on commission, similar to real estate agents, real estate brokers. Banks, they have their own portfolio of loans. They can later on sell them. Number 35. Okay, so 734 was C. The reason lenders consider the loan to value, LTV, is the abbreviation acronym for loan to value. Well, I'm glad you were changing it to C. That's a good point when you change it. It's not always good to change the answers. However, sometimes it is. Go with your gut instinct and your first answer that comes to your mind. The reason lenders consider the loan to value ratio important in underwriting is that, and they call it underwriting because after reviewing all the paperwork, all the documentation, all the credibility of the borrower, it goes to an underwriting group, a group that reviews the information in detail. They're not the ones that take it to close. They're the ones that do the final approval of the loan and say, hey, we need more information, or hey, it's approved. So the recent lenders consider the loan to value ratio, LTV, important in underwriting is that A, they don't want to lend borrowers more money than necessary. B, they want to ensure there is more money than enough collateral to cover the loan amount. Or C, borrowers can only afford to borrow a portion of the entire purchase price. Or D, the higher the loan to value ratio, the more profitable the loan. So what is the reason lenders consider the loan to value being more important in underwriting? So why is that the most important? Loan to value. So what percentage of the loan, of the value, are they loaning to the borrower? It'll depend on the appraised value, right? And are they going to get their money back if for some reason the borrower defaults? Type your answer in the chat. Question number and the letter answer. So the answer here is B. The lender wants to ensure there is enough money, that enough collateral is more than enough collateral to cover the loan amount. So they want to make sure that the property that they are financing after the down payment that the borrower puts is enough to cover their loan should the buyer default. Yes, it is B, Blanca. Very good. Where are you credit, equal credit opportunity, ECOA, not equal job opportunity, okay, but Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So remember that acronym, ECOA. So it requires lenders to do what? A, extend equal credit to all prospective borrowers. B, consider the income of a spouse in evaluating a family's creditworthiness. Consider the income of a person in child rearing or childbearing. Or D, specialized lending activity of geographical area for improved customer service. So what is the Equal Credit Opportunity Act? What does it require lenders to do? Type your answer in question number and the letter answer in the chat. So the answer here is 736B. So the Equal Credit Opportunity Act requires lenders to consider the income of a spouse in evaluating a family's credit worthiness. So if there's a husband and wife, the lender will look at both incomes. Now, if only one has an income, of course, they'll only consider one. However, if both individuals in the family, husband and wife, are working, they are going to look at both. So if one of them has a low credit rating, then they won't consider them, or they'll request a larger down payment and maybe even a higher interest rate. Oh, sorry, Blanca, the answer was B. So A says extend equal credit to all prospective buyers. Well, yes, they can offer equivalent type of financing programs. However, it's going to depend on their loan to value, their credibility, okay, debt to income ratio, and what debt they have, what loans they have, what properties they owe. So they're going to look at everything that family owes. But equal credit opportunity means they can't deny someone because of location, race, or economic situation, religion. Remember the Fair Housing Act. So they cannot deny, they can't, how do you get redlining? They've got to allow the same criteria to all borrowers. And borrowers have to meet the lender's criteria in order to get that loan. Lenders aren't just going to loan banks to just anyone. Okay, they're going to look at all the. So the lender is going to evaluate the loan on the basis of that applicant's own income and credit rating, right? Unless the applicant requests the inclusion of another's income and credit rating in the application. In such case, a lender may not discount or disregard income from part-time work, a spouse, child support, alimony, or separate maintenance. They can take all types of income coming in to that individual or that family. But each individual has to qualify. Okay, they have to present all their employment or job pay stubs, their income tax returns, whether filing single or married, any debts that they have. All that has to be presented. And there are programs like Federal Housing Administration or USDA that has higher percentages of what they will allow as far as debt for a borrower. All right, number 37. Thank you for participating, Blanca. Geez, I was trying to get it as big as possible, and it's not quite working for me here. Okay, number 37. Oh, that's not large enough for individuals watching it on their phone. Okay, there we go. Lenders use an income ratio in qualifying. You're welcome. Go, Spurs, go. Oh, are the Spurs playing tonight here in San Antonio? Wow, I haven't gone to a Spurs game yet for anybody that's a Spurs fan. All right, number 37. Lenders use an income ratio in qualifying to do what? A, to ensure a borrower has the earning power to make the loan payment. B, compare a borrower's earnings to the borrower's short-term loan or short-term debt. C, identify the highest possible interest rate that the borrower can afford. Or D, quantify the borrower's assets to the fullest extent. So the income ratio, like debt to income ratio, how much income does that borrower have compared to the debt that they have? In some instances, it could be 28%. FHA may allow up to 35 or 38%. VA loans can do higher because they're providing 100% financing. So lenders use an income ratio in qualifying to do what? Yes, the answer, Blanca, is A, to ensure a borrower has the earning power to make the loan payments, right? Once we get that money to buy that house, we got to pay that promissory note back, right? We're making a promise like in the old days. I promise to pay you $1,000 by doing $100 payment every month, right? So it's going to take 10 months. So that's a promise to pay. Back then we could, back years and years and years ago, like when my parents were growing up, they could make a note on paper and with a handshake. Nowadays, it goes through a lender. That promissory note is not recorded. Just the deed of trust and the warranty deed are recorded in the county courthouse of where the property resides. So the answer is A. Very good, Blanca. Blanca, do me a favor and make sure you include the letter number, the question number, and the letter answer, please. And again, thank you for participating. And anybody watching the replay, you can speed up and watch the video at a higher speed than what is normal so that you can watch it faster. And if you don't want to listen to all the in between or wait for the question to be answered, just fast forward, okay? Or go at a higher speed. I do that when I'm watching other videos and I'm learning. Usually 1.5 speed, I can still understand what the speaker is saying. Sometimes I can go to 1.75 or a speed of 2 and still pick up all the information. It depends on the clarity of the speaker. And I try to speak as clear as I can. All right, number 38. The debt ratio formula used to qualify borrowers. Again, that's the debt to income ratio. So the debt rate formula used to qualify borrowers is A, total debt divided by debt payment, or B, gross income divided by assets, C, gross income divided by debts, or D, debt payments divided by gross income. So what is the debt to income ratio? Okay, listen. Debt to income ratio. I should give you a clue as to what the answer is. So, hey, look at that. Blanca is usually watching my videos, but she finally caught us online. Blanca, you know what? I am so grateful and appreciative of you watching this. And I certainly hope that my videos, okay, help you prepare to pass your real estate exam. It has helped many, many of students to pass their real estate exam. I'm not the only one that does this. There are other excellent video creators that review questions. I'm like the only one that does specifically Texas, and then National Plus also does it live to allow you to participate. All right, so number 738, the answer is, did you write an answer? Okay, I'll give you a chance to type an answer for number 38. What did I say? Debt to income ratio. That should be a clue for the answer. And when you all are taking the exam, remember that if you're not sure of a question, click it for review. You can click the question for review to come back through it later, because a later question might help you answer a prior question. That's when I would say it's okay to change your answer. Otherwise, let it be. Like the Beatles song, let it be. Yes, the answer is D. The answer is debt payments divided by gross income. So debt to income ratio. So all the debt payments divided by a gross income provides us with a percentage for the lender as to what percentage of their income, of their income they'll allow as far as a loan to that borrower to purchase. It could be 28%, it could be 30%, it could be 40%, depending on the type of loan. On the norm, it's about 28% that they want to allow, 28% debt to income. And I'll tell you what, sometimes we as realtors or brokers advise a borrower, please do not go and buy anything major, except for groceries, paying your utilities and things like that. Don't go buy anything major and put it on a credit card before you close. Why? That's going to impact the debt to income ratio. And then, bam, they'll disqualify you if you go past the either 28%, 30 or 35%, whatever percentage the lender is allowing as the debt to income ratio. And then at the last week, ready to close, the lender was at, bang, you're not approved because you spent money. You charged money, I should say. If you have cash that you spend, that's different. If you put it on credit, oh my gosh, that has a major impact. Too many buyers do it. I don't know what percentage do it, but some do it, right? And it's our job as a realtor to educate them and advise them not to make any major expense on a credit card or get any loans prior to close. Yes, Blanca, I will look forward for you to come on here or post on the YouTube channel, okay, under comment that you passed your exam. So let us know, when do you take your exam? And are you in what state? You may have answered that already. But if not, what state are you in? Number 39. So, and we started with question 34 and we're on 39. At the closing of a mortgage loan, okay, at the close mortgage loan, A, the borrower, who is the borrower, pays off the note. What is a note? And receives clear title. What is clear title? These are all vocabulary. I haven't been pointing them out, but I am now. So at the closing of a mortgage loan, A, the borrower pays off the note and receives clear title. B, the lender issues a firm loan commitment. C, the parties complete all loan origination documents and the loan is funded. Or D, the borrower's loan application is complete and the file is closed. So Blanca passed her state. Oh, you're in San Antonio, Texas. Woohoo! That's where I'm located, San Antonio, Texas. But hey, I can help any of you in any state when it comes to national questions. When it comes down to talking about transactions, negotiating, how to talk to buyers and sellers, yes, I have experience with that. Ogundele said A for number 39. I'm sorry to say A is not correct. Ogundele, thank you for joining us. Take another attempt. So at the closing of a mortgage loan, okay, what happens? The answer is actually C. It said the parties complete all loan origination documents and the loan is funding. So that is at the closing of a mortgage loan. So they're in the borrowing process. Okay, let's see what the answer says. All right, because part of me wants to go along with both of you that said A. However, the book says C. The parties complete all loan origination documents and the loan is funded. So closing means like at the closing at the purchase of a property. There's a whole bunch of steps that go through before closing a property. So closing of a mortgage loan normally occurs with the closing of the real estate transaction. Real estate transaction is when there's a contract between a buyer and a seller. It's an escrow company or a title company. It goes through the closing process. One of the steps is getting final approval from the lender after a appraisal is done and a survey is done and final credibility checks are done. Then it can say, the lender will say, okay, we're ready to close this loan and loan them the money. The lender typically at the real estate closing, the lender typically has deposited the funded amount with an escrow agent. That escrow agent could be an attorney, or it could be an escrow agent at a title company, along with instructions for disbursing the funds. So the funds that will be disbursed were to pay the seller's other loan, to pay other debt that happened to be part of the closing, any other buyer closing costs. The borrower deposits necessary funds with the escrow agent. This is called the earnest money, and also the option fee. The option happens when the borrower is wanting to do inspections on the home inspection, electrical, roof, plumbing, wood stove, fireplace, or they want to have the AC repaired or serviced. Some of these costs will go to the seller, some will go to the borrower. So after that happens during the option period, they have, could be 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, however many days they requested in order to do their due diligence, do all the inspections to make sure that what they are purchasing is to their satisfaction and is operational. Okay. So then it says the borrower deposits necessary funds, the earnest money, with the escrow agent, executes final documents, which means they sign final documents, executes, and receives signed copies of all relevant documents. So when a contract between a seller and a buyer is delivered to the escrow agent, could be an attorney or it could be a title company. For the most part, it's a title company. Investors use a lot of attorneys. Then it goes through the closing process. The loan has to be approved first, the buyer's credibility, the survey, the appraisal, and then they do the final approval. Then all the documents are gathered by the escrow agent, and both parties come to the title company or the escrow office to sign all documents. Once everything is signed, it goes back to the lender so they can review everything, make sure all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. And they say, okay, cool. Everything is approved by us. Here's the money. Now the money goes out to be delivered to all the expenses that have to be paid by the escrow agent. Some of them could be buyer's closing costs, the seller's prior loan, property taxes, any other debts or judgments, and then whatever remains now goes to the seller. So that's called the disbursement section period after the loan is approved. Okay. So parties complete all loan origination documents and the loan is funded. Loan is funded at the day after they sign all the documents at closing, not the contract, but the final closing documents. And now the title is conveyed. Okay, the deed is conveyed. So very good. There's a lot that goes through each transaction. Okay, you're going to learn that once you start doing real estate. You're going to learn a lot of this that you studied on the job. A lot of it you're not going to use, of a lot more you're going to learn. Okay, number 40. Which laws or regulations require mortgage lenders to disclose financing costs and annual percentage rate, which is abbreviated APR, to a borrower before funding a loan? A, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. B, Truth in Lending Laws and Regulations. C, the Real Estate Settlement and Procedures Act. Or D, Fair Housing Laws. Think about these carefully, and these are all in your vocabulary and are terms and concepts that you must know. Equal Credit Opportunity, ECOA, Truth in Lending Laws, which is TIL, it's almost like Truth in Lending Act, TILA. The Real Estate Settlements Procedures Act, RESPA, and Federal Fair Housing A, FFHL. Type your question number and the letter answer in the chat. No, I don't show the answers because the book will end up showing you several answers at one time. And I've had different students say, Lillie, don't show us the answers. I used to show the answers and I don't now. One of the things I could do is have everything retyped to where then I can show the answer after each question instead of showing you multiple answers. But since I do it through using the book and Kindle, I can't quite do that. I mean, I can, but it would be shifting through lots of questions, lots of screens. So the answer here is B, Truth in Lending Laws and Regulations. Z. And what is a trigger in the question that says that? It is when they say the annual percentage rate, APR. Lenders have to be truthful, okay, in their advertising, right? Regulation Z. So laws or regulations require mortgage lenders to disclose financial costs. So whenever they're advertising about, hey, we offer this percentage interest, they must also disclose the APR, the annual percentage rate, which includes part of the closing costs in it. And the APR is a little bit higher than the standard interest rate. Every state has their own interest rate. And then when we add certain closing costs, then the annual percentage rate is calculated. and it's extrapolated to 30 years, right? It's amortized for the whole 30 years. So if you're not following me on that, I would say go look up Truth in Lending Laws and Regulation Z to understand a little bit more about how the truth in lending laws require lenders to disclose the annual percentage rate, APR, which is a little bit higher than the actual loan interest rate. So the loan interest rate is the rate before any closing costs are added to it. Annual percentage rate includes the loan amount interest plus any closing costs that were added to that loan or were part of the closing. Oh, I said 7.4, so it's 740B. Sorry about that. No, I couldn't see the choices, but now I can. Oh, you mean see the question answered? I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me to see the actual answers. So yeah, so those are the answers, the multiple choice answers for that question. Sorry about that. All right, number 741. Again, all these questions have anybody who just came on, we are dealing with test number 7 in the Texas real estate sales exam, and they have to do with financing, okay? And financing, these are national questions, apply to all 50 states. Now, which laws or regulations prevent mortgage lenders from discriminating in extending credit to potential borrowers? A, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. B, Truth in Lending Laws. C, Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. Or D, Federal Fair Housing Laws. These are all part of your vocabulary. So that's why I stress study, learn vocabulary. If you can memorize them, awesome. But if you don't have to memorize them. You want to understand them and learn them. So practice and practice lots of vocabulary. So which one prevents lenders from discriminating with credit? So far, I have 741A from Blanca. Anyone else? Type the question number and the letter answer in the chat. And yes, the answer is 741A, the Equal Credit Opportunity, right? So they cannot discriminate against anybody. So it's Equal Credit Opportunity Act to everyone, kind of like the Equal Employment Opportunity Act, right? Can't discriminate on equal opportunity for jobs. And they have to be posted in the office, in the brokerage offices. Because there was a time that lenders did not disclose everything. And as things happen in real life, then laws are created, okay, to protect whom? The consumer, not the investor, okay, because they're supposed to be more knowledgeable, but it still does protect them. It protects predominantly the consumer, family residents, okay, individual residents, homeowners, to put a roof over their family. Number 42. Which laws or regulations require mortgage lenders to provide an estimate of closing costs or a settlement statement or a good faith estimate, as they were called, to a borrower and forbid them to pay kickbacks for referrals? So there's a lot of vocabulary there. Vocabulary, laws or regulations, mortgage lenders, closing costs, borrower, kickbacks, referrals, forbid. See, lots of vocabulary words just in that question. So, which laws or regulations require mortgage lenders to provide an estimate of closing costs? It's like a debit and credit spreadsheet to a borrower and forbid them to pay kickbacks or referrals. Okay, paying somebody, money in order to send them lots of business. Okay, like realtors to send them a lot of business. They can't provide kickbacks to us as realtors. A, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. B, Truth in Lending laws. C, the Real Estate Settlement and Procedures Act. Or D, federal fair housing laws. So what are we talking about here? Mortgage lenders to provide estimate of closing costs to a borrower prior to selecting them as the lender to use to finance their property. Yes, RESPA, Real Estate Settlements and Procedures Act, right? That's what C stands for, RESPA. Oh, and yes, that is the answer, Blanca. Very good. Real Estate Settlement and Procedures Act, which is abbreviated acronym as RESPA. Very good. Called a settlement statement. When it's a cash property, it's called a HUD-1. House and Urban Development. And they used to all be called HUD-1, but now they're called a closing disclosure. Is like a settlement statement. However, this closing estimate of closing costs is provided to a borrower when they're going out and comparing different lenders. And so it's called a good faith estimate that the lender is providing to the borrower to see what kind of fees they're charging them to borrow that money. Some lenders have more fees, others have less. So it's a great idea. It's a great thing for borrowers to compare and for us as realtors to advise borrowers to check out different lenders. Legally, we are required to refer 3 lenders, 3 inspectors, 3 different service providers to a borrower so that they can decide which one they want to use. We can't provide the same one all the time because they might think, oh, they're getting a kickback, or because they're referring to that particular lender or bank or title company or builder, they're going to get money back, or appraiser, right? Well, no, we can't go by that. So in order to avoid that type of activity from any realtor or broker, then we provide 3, okay? 3 referrals of lenders to borrowers. Now, a lot of them already have their own lender. Maybe a family referred them, or friend, or church member, or something like that. Or they just walked into different offices and made their own comparison. But it's very valuable. Some lenders charge more fees, lending fees, origination points, and others don't. And right now, interest rates, everybody's saying, oh my gosh, people aren't buying because interest rates are so high. Well, they have been higher in the past, okay? Because I remember when I used to pay 9 to 10% on investment property loans or for a personal property. Now they're, 6.75 to 7.5. And during COVID and until September of last year, they were down to 3%. So we got spoiled with those low interest rates, but that's not the norm. All right, number 743. That's getting out of the topic, but you'll deal with that when you become a realtor and start helping borrowers. Number 43. Which of the following are methods used by the Federal Reserve System to regulate the money supply? So who supplies the money? So who is the Federal Reserve System? Vocabulary. A, selling securities, printing money, and controlling lending underwriting requirements. B, buying securities, changing the discount rate, and controlling banking reserves. C, printing money, changing interest rates, and selling T-bills. Or D, controlling the prime rate, trading securities, and purchasing loans. So which of the following are methods? So each answer has more than one method used by the Federal Reserve System to regulate money supply. So what does the Federal Reserve System do? To regulate the money supply in the nation of the United States. Type your answer, question number, and the letter answer in the chat. Come on. There's quite a few on you here. And for those of you that this is your first time, we're doing right now national questions that apply to all 50 states. And I am streaming onto my AgentPrep Facebook private group and to the YouTube channel. So if this is your first time to my channel, hey, remember to tap that subscribe button, click that little bell so you're the first to get notified every time I go live or upload a video. And tap the like button, okay, if you find this video useful. There's quite a few of you here, and I've only got one like. Come on, send me some love. All right, Blanca says B. And yes, the answer is B. So the Federal Reserve System regulates money supply by buying securities, changing the discount rate, and controlling banking reserves. Very good. Let's see if the answer has anything different. So let's see, the Federal Reserve System regulates money, so they bring under control money supply by means of three methods: selling and repurchasing, or repurchasing government securities, so that's buying securities, primarily treasury bills, changing the reserve requirements for member banks, that's controlling banking reserves, and changing the interest rate, so changing the discount rate or the interest rate or the discount rate. Right now, certain banks can charge borrowers to pay for a certain points for a discount rate. So if the interest rate is 7.5, they say, hey, if you want an interest rate of 7, it's going to cost you this much percentage of the purchase loan. Or they can ask the seller to provide money to pay for that discount rate. So again, they are selling or repurchasing government securities, primarily treasury bills, the T-bills, changing the reserve requirement for member banks, or changing the interest rate or discount rate. The system charges members into institutions for borrowing funds from the Federal Reserve System. Okay, so that was the answer B, right? So the several methods that the Federal Reserve System uses to regulate money supply is buying securities, changing the discount rate or interest rate, and controlling banking reserves for bank members. So they call it the system charges members institutions, okay, for borrowing their money. Okay, so any questions on national questions? We just did 10 questions for national real estate exams. And we were doing the test 7 on finance, okay, right here. And the book, Texas Real Estate License Exam Prep. And yeah, I know you're going to say, well, I'm not in Texas. That's okay. All these prep books have questions for the national portion of your exam. Some states have one exam that includes national and your state questions mixed in, or they might separate them within the one exam. Other states, like Texas, has 2 exams. A national portion, we have 85 questions, and then for Texas, we have 40 questions. Even though a sales agent, a salesperson, is graded on 30 questions versus 40. A broker is tested on 40 questions. So you must get a score of 70%. When you're studying these practice tests, I urge you to study them and repeat them until you get a 100 score. Okay? A 70 score when you're practicing exams is not enough. So when I was studying for my exam back in the end of 2013, so these are different books that I read and that I review and I use, not just for testing, but Creative Visualization is a great book to get our mindset and visualize. I passed, I passed, I passed. Okay, come on, book. So if you're in Texas, stay on board, and we're going to do Texas questions next. So Blanca, thank you very much. It's great. Let's see, you said you passed, what did you pass? I know you told me you passed one of your exams. Oh, you passed the state exam. Okay, well, great. Congratulations. Sometimes that's the hardest exam for many to do. And others say, hey, national has so many dark questions. Yes, in Texas, it has. It's a more constraint. All right, so I don't see anyone asking questions. Then we'll move on to Texas. And for the Texas exam, we are starting with question number. I'll let you know in just a moment. We're starting with test number 14, question 5. And if you're following the book, okay, that is on page 212. You'll see down here. Oh, yeah, you see down here. And the answers are on page 287. So this is how the answers look, y'all. See, I like how they have the answers. You see what I mean there? They explain the answer, and it's not right after the question so that we don't cheat and see the answer right away. They're at the end of the book, okay? But they explain the answer for you. That way you don't have to go to your study books or to the prep book and search for the answer. And I urge you and repeat, study your vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. And then take lots and lots of questions from this book or other prep books or other free questions that you find, or other YouTubers, okay, that are doing, like Prep Agent, Real Estate Wizard, Stu has his own, and do different channels. Now, not all of them have Texas State questions. How there are others that do questions for all 50 states. They might have 80 questions, 50 questions, and they do the question and the answer right away. They don't go into any detail and explain. Certain YouTubers channels that are realtors or brokers that do what I do, they do go and explain the questions, or they explain the concepts. I don't review a lot of concepts because other channels do that. What I do is help you learn the vocabulary. I have a lot of videos that go over vocabulary and shorts on the channel. And then I go over a lot of questions because that's what you're going to actually be using at the exam, right? You're going to have lots of questions, questions, questions. And was I ever afraid of questions? Oh boy, was I? Yes, because I took the exams in 3 different states, and in 2 states I failed it the first time. Okay. So I understand how you feel if you failed the first or second time. And you don't want to say, oh, it wasn't meant to be. If you really want this, do it. But know what you're getting into, because 87% of people that pass drop out of real estate within the first year or second year. It sounds easy. It's a tough business. You can make a lot of money or you can make no money because it's a lot of work, everyone. However, it's your business, it's your schedule. You do it how you want to, as long as you follow the state laws, national laws, and your local MLS, plus your broker, where you're hanging your license, policies and procedures. Lots of rules to follow. If you don't want to follow a lot of rules, you become a broker, okay? But then you're liable for a lot of things, okay? And the best thing to practice is be honest. Tell the truth. You don't have to hide behind anything. It'll protect you and save you and take care of you along your whole history of your real estate business. Okay, don't get in any trouble. All right. So what were the questions that we were going to discuss on the state exam? I'm sorry. You know, I'm really passionate about real estate and I want all of you to pass. So test number 14 is dealing with agency and brokerage relationships, right? And so that's what we're going to do some questions. Agency and brokerage relationships for the state of Texas. Number 5, which of the following scenarios would require disclosure? We have to disclose a lot of things, but which of the following scenarios would require agency, having a relationship, right, between 2 parties, disclosure? A, 2 buyers tell an Austin agent that they are seriously considering moving from San Antonio to Austin. B, a buyer tells a licensee that they cannot live in a 2-story home. C, a buyer tells an agent at an open house that they like the listing at the end of the cul-de-sac with the detached garage. Or D, a seller tells an agent that he or his wife are considering downscaling their main residence. So which one requires disclosure? If in doubt, disclose. Type your question number and letter answer in the chat, please. All right, so far I have Nas. Thanks for joining us, Nas, with letter number C. 14.5C. Anyone else? So the answer is 14.C. So which of the following scenarios would require agency disclosure? Okay, that there's a relationship with the client, prospect, or customer, C, a buyer tells an agent that an open house that they like the listing at the end of the cul-de-sac with the detached garage. So they're specifying a particular property that they want information. So that the agency, so this is in Texas, right? We only have single agency. We don't have dual agency. But that buyer at the open house is telling them that they like the listing at the end of the cul-de-sac, a particular property. So they're at an open house. So we disclose that we're either the agent representing the seller or we are not representing the seller, right? And because if that buyer were interested in the property that we're closing, I mean, that we are hosting at an open house and we are the listing agent, we're saying, hey, we represent the seller. We cannot represent you on this property. However, if they're interested in any other property, like the one at the end of the cul-de-sac, they can represent them as a buyer's agent. So it requires, which of the following scenarios require agency disclosure? They are asking about a particular property, not an area. If it's an area, well, we don't know the details of a particular property. When it comes down to a single property, then we must disclose, okay? And let them know, okay, I can represent you on that particular property. If I'm going to get more information, okay, I need to do a little bit more research. And the best thing to do is always disclose, right, that you're a realtor. But it says a buyer tells an agent at an open house that they like the listing at the end of the cul-de-sac with the detached. They're already specifying a particular property. And they can say, no, I don't represent the seller, or yes, I represent that seller. And anytime we're talking to a buyer or a seller, a prospect, we've got to disclose, okay, that we are a realtor, a sales agent, or a broker, and whether we're representing that property or not. So, we usually say we have to disclose at the first substantive conversation, concerning a specific property. Right, number 6. In which of the following instances does a broker have to disclose an agency relationship? Okay, who is they talking about? A broker. To disclose agency relationship. A, when a broker meets another principal party to the transaction, the buyer's spouse. B, when an agent meets a relative at an open house. C, when an agent has completed a lease with a tenant and plans to meet the tenant the following day. Or D, whenever the agent receives a phone call while performing floor time duty. So in which instances does a broker have to disclose? Type the question number and the letter answer in the chat, please. All right, Naz says A. Anyone else? Yes, the answer is A. Great, Naz. When the broker meets another principal party to the transaction, the buyer's spouse, they must disclose the agency relationship. because the spouse may not know that they're representing the other spouse yet. Okay. Spouse may have signed, and now the spouse comes in and to look at this property, and they're not sure, right? So the broker has to disclose that, or the realtor, to the buyer's spouse. Not necessarily when an agent meets a relative at an open house, right? They're meeting their relative, not when an agent has completed a lease. They already have an agency relationship, all right? They don't have to disclose it when they're meeting the tenant again. Whenever the agent receives a phone call while performing floor duty, they may just give out an address, okay? Don't have to disclose anything there. I mean, they're already calling a real estate office, right? However, if we represent the owner of the listing that they are calling about, yes, we must disclose that. Oh, by the way, I do represent the owner of this property. I can answer public information for you, but not information that pertains on, what you could offer, what the seller could accept. We don't know. We cannot share any confidential information with anyone else when we represent a client. In some states, it's a dual agency, right? But here in Texas, we're a single agency. Right. Number 7, in a given agency relationship, a broker is obligated to disclose to a seller all material information. What kind of information? All material information that could have an impact on the decision of making a decision on the property. So disclose to a seller all material information known to the agent. This is an example of A, seller agency, B, buyer agency, C, dual agency, or D, intermediary agency. So in a given agency relationship, a broker is obligated to disclose to a seller all material information known to the agent. This is an example of, so who are they talking about with the broker? So who does the broker have an agency relationship with? And they must disclose. It doesn't say must, but it's a must. Disclose any information, seller, any all material information that we may know about the property that is visible to us or documented to us. And seller may not or may know about it. Type your answer in the chat, question number, and the letter answer, please. Now, there's several of you on here. It'd be good for you all to participate. It helps you. Whether you get it right or wrong, it's okay. If you get it right, woohoo, we'll celebrate. If it's inaccurate, I'll help you understand the correct answer. The answer is A, seller agency. So an agent who is obligated to disclose immaterial facts to the seller is acting under the duties of seller agency. Such an obligation to a buyer would characterize buyer agency, right? So when we're representing a seller as a broker or an agent, we must disclose all material information that we know of that the seller may not be aware of, okay? I mean, the seller is supposed to be aware of a lot of things. However, if they've not lived in the property, they inherited the property, they're an administrator, or they're an executor, or they're a trustee, they may not know all the details that we have seen, okay, visually seen when we go to the property, or that we have experienced or learned about through documentation. Now, if it's anything that's legal and requires an attorney, then we refer them to an attorney. or they need financial information, we refer them to an accountant. Title information, we refer them to an attorney or the title company. Number 8. All right, number 8 is a long one. Oops. Okay. Again, these are Texas state questions with agency brokerage relationships. So in the last paragraph of the disclosure, information about brokerage services, which we abbreviate as IABS. So IABS, okay, information about brokerage services. There are several important recommendations made to prospective buyers and sellers. What kind of buyers and sellers? Prospective buyers and sellers. They're not necessarily an agency relationship between them or the brokerage. One of the most important of these is that A, whoever compensates the agent is the ultimate party the agent is responsible to. B, whichever alternative is elected, the seller is the party the agent legally represents. C, the consumer must make a decision between buyer or seller agency or using an intermediary. So what is intermediary? D, if the consumer, who's the consumer, decides to be represented, what is represented? That he or she should complete a written agreement. What kind of an agreement? Written agreement that lists out the respective obligations of the agent and the principal. Who is the principal? A lot of definitions in there. Type the question number and the letter and answer in the chat, please. And for anybody that's watching the replay, right now we're doing Texas state questions, which have to do with brokerage and agency relationships. And if you're playing the replay, hey, you can fast forward or put it on a faster speed. All right, if nobody's going to type an answer, the answer here is D. If the consumer decides to be represented, that he or she should complete a written agreement that lists out the respective obligations of the agent and the principal. Okay, the agent who is under a broker and the principal who could be a buyer or a seller. Okay, so it's in the last paragraph of the disclosure, information about brokerage services. There are several important recommendations made to prospective buyers and sellers. One of the most important of these is that D, if the consumer decides to be represented, now they sign a document and they have a buyer's representation agreement or a listing agreement. Now there's an agency relationship, that he or she should complete a written agreement, right? Buyer's rep agreement or listing agreement. Or rental agreement that lists out the respective obligations of the agent and the principal. So a tenant in Texas falls under the buyer/tenant representation agreement. If the seller is going to sell it as a lease, then they're signing a listing agreement, and that brings about a agency relationship, and that is stated at the end of the information about brokerage services. That's the IABS. Okay, number 9. Three of the following answers accurately characterize the duties of an intermediary. What is intermediary? What are the duties? Which one does not? So there are 3 correct answers. One is not. A, must treat parties fairly, honestly, fairly, and impartially. B, may not disclose confidential information regardless of circumstances. C, must disclose information materially impacting property condition. Or D, may not negotiate a lower or higher price without authorization. So which one is not accurately characterizing the duties of an intermediary? Type your question. Okay, Naz says B. Anybody else? All right, the answer is B. So out of the three following answers, accurately characterize the duties. Which of the following characterize the duties of an intermediary? Three of them do, one of them does not. So B does not, may not disclose confidential information regardless of circumstances. So you might think, oh, I thought everything was confidential. However, if the courts request confidential information to be presented to the court, legally, we must disclose that information. So that is not confidential when it's requested by the court, by an order of court. When it has to do with anyone else that is not part to the agency relationship, then we do not disclose. And so we must treat parties honestly, fairly, and impartially. We must disclose information materially impacting property condition, right? Anything that impacts the decision that a buyer or seller must make. Or D, may not negotiate a lower or higher price without what? Authorization. Why? We don't make the decision. Our clients do in the agency relationship. We are there to advise and provide statistics and provide direction. They make the decision based on our information and whatever they may have discovered on their own. Okay. So on the prior question, I just noticed the answer made another comment here, and I want to specify that. So, and in number 8, it said in the last paragraph, IABS broke the information of brokerage services. There are several important recommendations made to prospective buyers and sellers. Now, a buyer and a seller does not have to be represented. They can represent themselves. Okay. If they choose to represent themselves, then we do not have an agency relationship. So they have a choice to be represented as a seller, as a buyer, or to not be represented. And if we happen to represent the seller in that case, and they contacted us through our online marketing, other advertising, or a real estate sign, or a business card, or our tag, okay, on our name at an open house, if they request us to help them on that property, of course, we cannot represent them, right? Because we all represent the seller. Therefore, they're like, okay, we'll represent ourselves. And that's fine. They can represent themselves. However, we need to advise them that we cannot help them to negotiate, give them any suggestions, any guidance. We can only provide public information that's accessible to everyone. We can write the contract by asking them questions, filling in the blanks, and facilitating the close. We legally represent the seller. And many buyers are fine with that. Okay, they'll represent themselves because a listing agent still has to follow the legal laws, and it goes through a title company or an attorney as an escrow officer and is done legally. However, it's always best for a buyer to have their own agent representing them, especially in Texas, that we only represent one. Now, if the broker has two realtors in the office, one that represents the seller, one that represents the buyer on the same property, then that broker is an what? An intermediary. However, only one agent represents each client. In the case where the seller agent represents the seller and writes the contract for the buyer, that is not an intermediary relationship. There's only one agent that has an agency relationship with that particular transaction. Okay, so that finalizes our Texas questions. We did 10 national questions for all 50 states, and we did then 5 questions for the Texas state exam. Any questions before we call it a night? So the national questions on today's session had to do with finance, and the Texas state questions had to do with broker agency relationships. Any questions? If none, hey, I want to thank you for attending tonight and showing that you're committed to prepare to pass your real estate exam, and you really want to pass your real estate exam. Practice a lot of vocabulary, do a lot of practice tests until you get 100, and affirm, I passed, I passed, I passed. Talk to other realtors, other brokers, and determine if this is what you really want to do. What is it really like to be a realtor? What is it really like to be out there representing sellers or buyers? Because it is a lot of work. It seems easy and it seems fun. It's a lot of work. Okay. It's not just an 8 to 5 job or 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. It's a lot of work, a lot of prospecting, calling, making videos, dealing with all different parties, having open houses, knocking on doors, talking to people every day in order to make connections with individuals, people that need our help in helping them either solve a problem to sell a property, buy a property, or invest in real estate. We are dealing with individuals, one of their biggest purchases, one of their largest assets or investments. It's a major part of their life, and it can be very emotional, stressful, a lot of anxiety, divorces, lots of things. We've got to be strong and stay separate. Okay. Keep a neutral mind, a positive mindset. We have to work and help ourselves keep a mindset, stay positive, and not allow ourselves to get down with what happens in the world, in the news, or in the transaction. We're the expert there to help balance our clients in a transaction between a seller and a buyer. So if no further questions, thanks for attending. This is YouTube Agent Prep with Wow Lillie Handy coming to you, or Lillie Handy Dominguez from San Antonio, Texas. I look forward to you visiting and meeting us in the next session or on a virtual, shorts. I'm doing lots of shorts. I'm also doing videos and shorts on how to get your business going, what's it like in the real world of real estate, how to get listings, how to work with buyers and sellers. So I have now added how to get your business going, not just tutoring to pass your real estate exam. So that's why the channel is YouTube Agent Prep. It preps you to pass your exam, or it helps you get your business going or grow your business. I am a currently active realtor. Okay. I've been a broker in Oregon, and I've done real estate in different markets, different types of transactions during the low time, during high times, and I currently prospect every day to get listings to represent sellers. And if you're hearing a lot of negativity in the news, don't let it bog you down. Don't let it discourage you. People still need to buy and sell real estate, and they still need realtors. Even though there's a lot done online, that communication between a buyer and the seller, that relationship is still very important in these buying and selling transactions. We're helping people. We're having conversations every day. Help somebody put a smile on their face and help them solve a problem. Until next time, y'all. Love ya. Bye.